Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Beta Breakdown. In this episode, we're going to be looking at the August 2023 balance updates. It looks like they're doing these every month, so I'm going to start covering them every month. We did July recently, and there was not a lot to report on there, and the buffs that they gave to older heroes were pretty sad. The buffs are more substantial this time, and the nerfs I don't think are going to surprise anybody, but let's dive in and take a look. If you're getting frustrated with empires and puzzles, let me just say that Gemstone Legends probably has the things you're looking for. They have a mercy system that guarantees a legendary hero after a certain amount of pulls, and we're not just talking about a weak legendary hero from a pre-selected list. They have a wish list that you can put any hero in the game on to boost your chances of pulling that specific hero. They take into account player feedback, and many of the changes that have gone live in the game were based on player feedback or were player suggestions to begin with. They're even going to give you a free $50 starter bonus just for downloading from one of the links in the description. If the earlier stuff somehow wasn't enough, you can be a hero in wars even just using rare heroes only. They have tons of events that allow you to earn free 10 pulls and other very usable high value stuff. Gemstone Legends really has a lot going for it, so come check it out if you're curious to see why tens of thousands of people have left Empires and Puzzles to come play. Alright, this will be live by the time you're seeing it. Alright, how time flies. 4 whole months have passed since the launch of Ether Powers, and 2 months have passed since the big balance update, which turned out to not be so big, because they walked back everything. We've been paying extra close attention to competitive PvP metrics throughout this time. This month, we'll be tuning down one hero, Jove, and one Ether Power, Taunt, both of which have proven to be excessively powerful in the current state of the game. With Jove, I would agree, despite having him and having limit broken him. I would agree with them on that. Ether Taunt, probably so as well, but having done Ether Taunt myself, you really gotta blow up the board even to just get the tank to fire into you sometimes within 4 turns. So sometimes it doesn't do anything because the board is too slow and then everyone's charged right as it runs out. So it's a different play style. I suppose it does increase the likelihood of winning, but it's a lot more powerful on defense, I guess, and what I was referring to was the offensive capabilities. Okay, we expect all of the affected heroes to continue to be amazing competitive options, but with these adjustments, there should be more room for a wider range of heroes and strategies to shine, particularly at the top. It would be nice to believe that that's what they mean, but they just decide when a hero's time has come and it's someone else's turn to take his place. So they let these heroes reign for a while, they rake in a lot of money for people pulling for them, and then they decide, all right, been long enough, whose turn is it now? And the interesting thing is, well, let's look at this first, and then I'll share what that thought is. Jove. Direct damage reduced from 530% to 450. They're only mentioning the direct damage there. However, the other damage, the minor damage as they call it, is relative to the direct damage. So this is just an overall pretty significant cut to the amount of damage that he does. In addition, they've changed the healing reduction effect. It used to be a minus 65% decrease for any healing. Now it's a minus 50% decrease for any boosted healing. So that's huge. This is exactly why I did not double limit break him, because it felt like this was going to be coming, and here it is. So how much of an impact will it make? We'll find out. So the other interesting thing that I wanted to mention about this nerf to Jove is that a while ago when they did the big balance update, there were a few heroes that were selected to not receive a stat boost because they were already very dominant heroes. Jove was selected not to receive the stat boost, so compared to other heroes in the family that he's in or other heroes from around the same time as him, his stats are quite a bit lower. And now that they have reduced him to not being one of the most overly strong heroes, they did not choose to boost his stats as a result to kind of compensate for him being not one of the most elite heroes. I think the the change to the healing block is going to be significant, because once he hit you, it was very hard to recover. Now you just can't boost health. I mean, a lot of the healers that people are using now are boosted health healers. However, it's just interesting that they've tuned him down to the point that maybe when they did the big balance update, they would have actually boosted his stats, but they're not doing that this way now. So something to keep in mind with these nerfs is that if they were previously ignored, they might not come back for them even after tuning them down. So we'll see what happens with that ultimately. And then Ether Power Taunt has been reduced from 4 turns to 3 turns. They proposed this a while ago with the big balance update. They walked it back, left it alone. Now they've done it again. So you can see all the heroes that are going to be affected by this. Bad timing. I just invested in Ether Taunt. And that's really the crux of these adjustments and balance updates and nerfs and buffs and all this kind of stuff, is they have done such a poor job with coming across trustworthy and predictable. And instead they come across as you never know what's going to happen, or what crazy thing they might do, or what over-the-top nerf they might consider for a hero. And they just don't come across trustworthy with their ability to properly balance their own game. People are already skeptical of the greed element and like the way they write things, of trying to bring balance to the game. And it's like, I don't think anyone believes that anymore, because the game is hugely imbalanced, and that doesn't seem to be a problem for them. So it's like they're just pretending, ignoring the elephant in the room and pretending that they are doing their best to balance the game and make all heroes playable competitive options, and they're simply not doing that. So that's a big difference. As I've said many times on this channel, 4 turns feels like 2 turns longer than 3 turns. There's something significant about that 4th turn, just in terms of how the game functions and how long it takes to do certain things. That 4th turn, you really feel it, and 3 turns sometimes feels like it's just over too short. Yeah, not sure what else to think about that one. Let me know if you have any thoughts on either of these things. Jove did need an adjustment. I mean, that's for sure. It is just always, I don't know. They seem to handle things in such a way that brings about frustration regardless of what they do. And I think they've just put themselves in a bad position by handling things so poorly and so selfishly in the past. Okay, let's look at the buffs to older heroes. As always, we took some time to read through our players' varied opinions here on our forums. A big thanks to everyone who chipped in with their 2 cents. If you haven't made yourself heard, please join in the fun. It's a whole lot of fun asking them to fix things and then they ignore it. Of course, we also noticed and appreciated the warm responses to our July 2023 round of buffs to older heroes. We'll do our best to keep these coming in future balance updates. Is it that hard? I mean, isn't balancing the game one of the core responsibilities of having a game? They act like they've got bigger, better, more important things to do, when that is the very nature of their job. Okay, Elradir. Again, I'm only laughing because a lot of these things really feel like a too little too late. I'm not trying to make anyone feel bad who has these heroes or uses these heroes. That's not my perspective at all. It's just the amount that they give is like, I don't know, feels like you're hungry and they give you a pistachio or something and you're like, thanks, but is that all that you can manage? Okay, direct damage, a minor increase from 255 to 285, still wildly underpowered for hit 3 heroes that we're seeing in the game now. Duration of status ailment reflection effect extended from 3 to 4 turns. Okay, so they're buffing these older heroes of the month for some reason. These were released around the same time. Let's see what we've got here. Direct damage increased on alternative 1. Okay. Mono generation debuff increased. Okay. Defense debuff. Yeah, okay. This is not going to make a meaningful difference the vast majority of the time, but if you have these heroes again, I am glad that someone is getting something from it, but it just feels like too little. Micah. Okay, defense buffs increased. So they changed some family bonuses, and those are pretty significant, so stay tuned for that. Costume bonuses. 4 different families. Defense buff increased on the first and second charge from 20 to 25 and 40 to 50. Very minor increase. Mono generation buffs increase. That is nice and will make a difference in certain types of teams. I don't know if Micah fits your roster or if you should ascend based on this information, but here it is. Sir Roostly. Direct damage increased. Still no costume for him for some reason. Direct damage increased from 280 to 310. Okay. Yang Mai, direct damage increased from 280 to 310 as well. Chance of additional hits increased from 50 to 60. So minor. so minor. Yunin, direct damage increased from 161 to 200. Duration of buffs increased. Sand damage over 3 turns goes up a tiny bit. What is that, 20 per turn? That's ridiculous. Duration of healing reduction increased. Okay, range of cleanse from all allies. Okay, still slow speed. I don't think you want to rely on a slow speed cleanser. So let me know if you have a differing opinion on these. I just find these disappointing because it's like they find some of the absolute worst performing heroes, and just give them a tiny little nudge. And it's like, okay, not cutting it. All right, costume unit direct damage increased, sand increased. So again, they're favoring the costume. They want you to, only the biggest investors get to see some changes. All right, costume bonuses. So all Valhalla realms are getting a huge buff to the costumes from 7% attack, 7% defense, and 13% health to 16, 16, and 28. Holy shit, that's wild. And again, just the costumes. No buff to the older heroes, only, like, the way I like to think about costumes and the way that I honestly suggest that you think about the costumes is it's a different hero. It's simply a different hero. Having the original hero has almost nothing to do with the costume except that they bear a resemblance, the skill is likely similar, and you can level the costume up faster than the base hero. Other than that, it's a different hero. The special skill changes, the stats change, the class changes, the stats change, and you have to pull them again. You have to buy them. So if you think about the time where season 3 came out and then how much time went by for season 3 costumes to come out, that's just a new round of heroes for the same season. And yeah, so anyways, it's good to think of it that way because if you look at it here, it's only the new version of the hero that gets a huge buff, and they already are the better version in most cases, in the vast majority of cases, and the older hero gets nothing. So keep that in mind. Same thing for Underwild, not quite as big, but pretty damn close considering that it's a whole season newer. And Challenge Festival families, Pirate, Guardian, Wonderland, Grim Forest, Avalon. Just costumes, of course. Wow, that's the biggest buff overall. Jeez, 30% health. Wow, Gazelle's going to be happy with that. I might have to max the second one of her. That also means... No, Anne doesn't have a costume. I was going to say, God, how is she getting a huge buff? All right, that's it. So massive boost to the newer version of heroes. Some very meager buffs to some old, hardly playable heroes. And a couple selective nerfs. I think ultimately people are going to be okay with these nerfs. But there's always some people who are just like, nope, don't change anything. It's deceitful. It's false advertising. I do agree with that in a lot of ways. I think the responsibility of balance should be before release. I mean, they release things in a hasty way. They get people financially invested and then they change them significantly. And I do have a problem with that as well. Let's see what their last words are for us. We hope the adjustments above will help you field these particular fan favorites, that's just a canned response, in a wider range of situations. If your favorite hero missed the cut this time, please remember to let us know. As always, we will continue to keep an eye on all heroes affected by this update in case further adjustments become necessary. Please refer to our hero balancing FAQ for why we occasionally make... occasionally. Get the fuck out of here. For why we occasionally make post-release balance adjustments. We should look at that, actually, because oh man, it's probably so full of bullshit. If you wish to share your feedback or discuss this update with fellow players, feel free to join the discussion here. Thank you for your interest and support. All right, let's look at this. Why do you balance heroes after release? Ready for the most bullshit answer ever? Ideally, all new heroes would be perfectly balanced before release. They're already phrasing it in such a way that it's like, this is so difficult and impossible, when it just means they would need to put more work in than they're willing to. We carefully test them internally as well as in the beta program. Unfortunately, some heroes can still be too powerful either by themselves or combined with another hero. The only way to know for sure is based off the real data from the game. Not true. So often, why have the beta group? Because you have a bunch of experienced players who've been playing for a while that can share their feedback and their experience, and often in most situations are probably more knowledgeable than the development team themselves in terms of what balance could or should look like. And they often disregard them. Like they said, the costume Krampus was too strong when he came out, and they absolutely obliterated him in the update in terms of what he was before, and people had told them that from the beginning, and they ignored it. So we understand that the adjustments to heroes in the live game may be disappointing. However, we are confident that these changes are necessary for the overall balance of the game. Not the objective balance, the bottom line financial balance, or imbalance is actually a better word there. They don't really mean balance, they don't care about balance. It's pretty clear if you look at the big balance update who got buffs and who didn't. They don't care about balance. They prefer the opposite of balance. Why do you nerf heroes? Whenever possible, we try to avoid making heroes weaker. However, if we notice that some hero is clearly stronger than all of the other heroes of the same rarity, we are sometimes forced to nerf it instead of boosting all the other heroes. Oh man, whoever wrote this is a real manipulative person. If we notice that some hero is clearly stronger than all of the other heroes, like they're implying that they're only nerfing heroes when they are the single strongest hero in the rarity, and that is often not the case. I don't know. You can see how much they have eroded my trust in them over time with all of the decisions that they've made. And as I mentioned in another video, some people think that makes me pessimistic towards the game overall. However, I feel like their reputation was earned and is deserved based on their decisions. And would I prefer for everything to be going well and to be more in support of the different aspects of the game? Of course I would. However, I'm not just going to pretend for my own sake that they aren't doing the things that they're doing. Alright, do you ever buff old heroes? From time to time, we do buff older heroes to keep them viable. That's a pretty sick definition of viable, looking at what we just saw. And fun to play with. We review player feedback on existing heroes routinely, so the best way to get your opinion heard is to share them. Very interesting that they phrase it that way, because they have pointed out very directly in the past that balance adjustments aren't made based on player feedback, that they're based on the game data. So similarly, if they can see who the top performers are, they can see who the lowest performers are. They could be using their data. They want to get you involved in the forum because it keeps you invested in the game. It keeps you thinking about the game. It keeps you talking about the game. They have their store attached to the forum now, so it keeps you in a position where they can advertise to you. So they don't want to hear people's voices, or they would do bigger buffs, of more heroes. There's so many deserving heroes that could be buffed who aren't. Why aren't all balance changes tested in beta? We aim to bring most of the new features and changes to beta first, as the input from the players is vital to keeping the gameplay experience as fun and gratifying as possible. Oh man, they so routinely disregard feedback from beta. Tremendously overwhelming feedback from beta. However, if we believe there's little room for further adjustments, We may decide to release the balance changes straight to the live game. We don't want to publish things in beta that cannot change based on tester feedback. How do you measure balance? All of our balance changes are based on the actual game metrics. Well, I thought you were just talking about player feedback and people sharing their opinions. Kind of proving yourself wrong already, just 2 questions away. Game balance develops over time, so it may take weeks or months to determine how a certain hero performs in the game. Wrong. How do you make sure that new heroes are not too strong versus old heroes? Our aim is to always ensure that each hero provides some utility. I was curious how they were going to answer that because they very clearly release heroes that are much stronger than others, and they definitely know it. And that's how they arrange their portals now, where if there's 3 featured heroes, typically one of them is a pretty good hero, 2 of them less interesting, and the best one is not featured. Our aim is to always make sure they have some utility. That being said, we do want the new heroes to be exciting and desirable. Oh, fuck yeah, they do. We use all the tools at our disposal to make sure that the new heroes won't be too strong compared to the old ones. Does anyone believe that? Won't be too strong compared to the old ones. They're specifically mentioning old ones, not older, not relatively older, but old heroes. They are unbelievably stronger than the older heroes, and it's clearly by design. I mean, they get more stats from limit breaks than newer heroes do. Like, everything about the way they structure old versus new heroes is to make new heroes considerably stronger than old heroes. Well, I guess they say won't be too strong, so that's based on their own definition, which is like you can't just kill them in one shot or something like that. The final item in this toolbox is rebalancing the heroes based on live data. And then another call to action here at the end. I mean, you could look at this as they're trying to recruit you to the forum. Here's another call to action if you happen to see this elsewhere, like a video like mine. So if you feel motivated, of course, you can go to the forum and share your opinions. Just keep in mind that they have ulterior motives for wanting you there. And it's not necessarily to listen to your voice because, as they expressly mentioned here, updates and balance changes are based on data, not on player feedback. So, a little confusing. Anyways, interesting to read that. Let me know your thoughts on the the August 2023 balance updates. Are you in favor? Too much? Not enough? I really want to hear from you guys. One thing I really appreciate about the channel I've developed is all of the people who share their opinions, who have, strong opinions about the game or just think about it in ways that are different from me. I find it an enriching experience to have access to so many different opinions on things. So please do share that in the comments down below. Please hit the like button and subscribe to show your support for the channel. If you come here to watch the videos, that's a great way to support me and a way for you to see more of the videos that you want to see. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.